Hi, guys, and welcome back to another edition of The Big Shift. And today I've got a fascinating international guest, unbelievable story. He was a main Gambino enforcer and hitman. His story, guys, I tell you, it's really something. I'm just going to get straight into it. My guest today is John Alite. Welcome, John. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Stephen, for having me. I appreciate it.
So the line of command, just to make it really, really simple, who would you answer to then, John? Who would you answer to first?
As a kid, it definitely was the Ruggiano family. That's who was the sitting boss in our neighborhood. When he goes to jail, Fat Andy goes to prison, and he's in and out of jail several times since I'm a kid that I was around. But when he goes for the one long bid, that's when Gotti steps in his shoes. I mean, actually, Gotti and all these guys, everybody in our neighborhood answered to Fat Andy Ruggiano. It's just that he was a very quiet gangster. People don't really know that out in the public world. I'm probably the first guy who started talking about this in the last, 5 years about it. This guy was an sensational gangster that his name's not really publicly known the way most guys like Capone or somebody's names, because he was a different human being. He was very quiet, but very dangerous.
It's certainly changed, John, where, the main goal of the life was to be under the radar, was to not draw attention, was to not be known, not be seen, have none of your activities leveraged or, in the public eye or anything like that. It was always going to be bad. So, it's really, really changed, right? But we'll get back to that. But I'm putting that contrast there, or when we look at them real old guys, at how they was really schooled and the values they had and what they didn't want, and where that really pivoted later on, with John Gotti Sr. Did you like John Gotti Sr.?
Yeah, people ask me, I love John Gotti Sr. Actually, I didn't believe in a lot of his ways as I got older. I made some comments because I've been mad over the years with some of his actions. But the guy, I love the guy. The guy was a gangster. The guy treated me like a son. And I was around the family. So, when people, like yourself, you just talk about, I try to be under the radar, but it was very hard, being around the father and to stay under the radar. So, just recently, pictures are coming out with me picking up Gotti Sr. from court. And I was in the Vanity Fair magazine. I'm coming out of his house. And there's tons of pictures that people say in an era when there was really no cameras. And, I got some videos that come out from the Ravenite. I got 3 of them. I won't put them out. And, people say, well, why wasn't he ever on a video at the Raven? At first, our life was to try to stay off those videos. But unfortunately, like you said, a lot of us get caught on those videos because Gotti was a flashy guy. So, those videos are out there, and I'll put them out eventually. I'm not putting them out. I'm using them for other things and projects that we're in the middle of doing with Fat Andy's son, Anthony. We're in the middle of some projects. So they'll go out eventually. But to me, there's no reason to put them out. I mean, a guy like yourself, who's a gangster, ex-gangster, we understand each other. We understand through bullshit. That's why we're alive. We can see through it. We know who's real, who ain't real. So this isn't about the public. This is about our own lives and how we conduct ourselves now. So, eventually I will put some of the other stuff out too. But, there's no sense to keep, you're getting caught on these pictures. I'm usually the quiet guy that you see in the background of a picture, every picture. So, and that was our life, to try to stay quiet. And Fat Andy, again, Albert and Anthony, they taught us, and that's the way I was raised as a kid, especially with Anthony and Albert, because they were, a little older than me, 10 and 5 years older than me, that I'd understand to follow the way their father wanted things.
Angelo Della Croce as well. Did you know him well?
I didn't, these guys, people will say to me, did you know, when you don't have, I'm a kid, they'll say hello to me, how you doing, kid? And that's it. You keep it moving. You have especially then, the life we were taught a certain way. We weren't allowed to go speak to a boss if we felt like it. We weren't allowed to speak to an underboss. We were allowed to say hello to them and keep it moving. It was different with Anthony and Albert and Fat Andy, because I grew up around the house and they were my coaches. And, so you could talk to the father different than you could talk to another guy, because you're almost like his grandson or something, so, it was a different thing. But, we follow rules and regulations in our life. And so a lot of these guys, all you're going to do is say hello and goodbye. Unless you got business and unless they're asking you to do a piece of work for them or something, then you're going to have a conversation with somebody, but not even direct usually back then.
Yeah, of course. So when was the first bit of serious work that you done for the Gambino family, John? The first bit of serious work. You're a bit older now. Let's go forward a little bit, and you're older now. What was the first bit of serious work?
One of the, I did a couple of things for Gotti himself, and talking about butchering guys, whether it was stabbing them or batting them, and then eventually I got a conduit through the son with the Irish guy that he was staying with. They got robbed for about 400 or 500 pounds of pot. And they asked me to go on the hit, and we were going to shoot some Jamaican kids, which we end up shooting. The Irish guy was the shooter, I was the driver. And the reason why I'm saying the Irish guy doesn't matter, so many names. And if I keep saying he's another John, by the way, so there's too many Johns to keep saying John. So, he was the shooter. After the shooting, he was high while he did the shooting. And so I wasn't happy about that. And then after the hit, I made a left-hand turn, and he jumped out of the car and left the gun with me. So, eventually we hit him for a lot of reasons, this guy, but one of them was he was involved in a gang rape. And one, it was in the back of my mind to hit him because he left me in that car. So that was always part of that hit also in the back of my mind. But, that was probably one of the first hits I went on. And then after that, it became a regular thing. I went on shooting after shooting. And, for the people that don't understand that life, after you do one or two shootings, or even one, and the boss doesn't okay what you're doing, I would have been chopped up. I would have been chopped up by Fat Andy if he didn't like what I was doing, or his sons would have killed me, or Gotti himself would have had me killed. So you don't do what I do without everybody giving you permission for the way I'm running around.
That's a very important point, John, for people who don't understand, right, their life, right? Now, look, there's a big list of people here, right, John? I'll just go into a couple of them just to give them a flavour, right?
Yeah.
You can give me the story around these guys. I know we can go on and on with some of these names, right? But look, Louis De Bono.
Louis De Bono was supposed to be a hit originally, and they called the hit off. Sammy was involved in it. And actually, I just had this conversation with Sammy. I thought he was in jail when he got called off, but he was on the street. Gotti sent a message out to us to hit him. The son met with me. I had to meet with the guy, Bobby Borriello, I was very close with. He gets killed later on over the Paul Castellano hit. They hit him in front of his house. And they told me to go kill Louis De Bono. So I tried to start setting that up. I was supposed to hit him in Atlantic City. We don't find him into New York City, and he gets hit there. But he was also a made guy with us.
Why, John? People will love. I'm just saying, because there are so many. It's so treacherous. And usually when it comes like that, it's advanced. You're not seeing it coming. It really can be fucking anything at that point. But why, people will say, okay, why? Well, why Louis De Bono at this time, John?
It's as simple as this, what people understand. We live in a dictatorship. Mm-hmm. So when my boss tells me to go kill somebody, I can't say, well, I put my hand up and say, I don't think we should kill him. It doesn't work like that. So he tells us to kill somebody, we kill him. If Anthony asked me, or if his father sent a message and say, hey, let's go beat this guy, kill this guy, we don't question his father. And later on, when you talk to Anthony, he'll tell you his father sent messages on a constant basis. Go kill this guy, go kill that guy. If it's up to these guys that are, because these are old school gangsters. These are guys in an era of when they went out and they went to war and they brought their Tommy gun with them. It's not these days when, it was the 50s, it was the 60s. So when they send out an order, I'm just the guy that's going to go execute that order. So, that's my job. And so I'm not questioning what the boss says and why. I didn't believe he should get hit, to be honest with you. But again, this is not my decision.
That's another good point, John. Thanks for that. Frankie Kiki.
Frankie Kiki gets killed for several reasons. And, Anthony's sitting on the side of me here. He raised his hand to his mom. So he was dead no matter what. And then he also took a machine gun at a place called Butterfingers and tried to shoot Jojo Carrazzo, who was later on becomes a concierge of our family. So for those two reasons, he was getting chopped up and killed. Again, they called me up at 2 a.m. and they told me to go look for him and, try to set up the murder, which later on Anthony's involved with killing his brother-in-law because of those things I just talked about. And again, he could be Fat Andy's son or not. That order comes down. he's going to do that work whether he likes it or not, or he's going to get killed. So that's just the way, we operate, like any other, whether it's the Army, or then we bring this up all the time, Marines. You're taking an order from your general and you're going to carry it out whether you like it or not.
There are rules, absolutely. On that point, John, speaking about that, Frankie Kiki, explain to the audience what, in that dynamic, what actually happens to the loose cannons, to the people who stray. The most famous one, would be a guy like Joey Gallo. Did you know Joey Gallo?
Yeah, Joe Gallo. I know. I didn't know first. I'm a kid, but yeah, I know these guys. I knew, his Kid Blast, his brother Al. Al Gallo. I knew him. He had a place down in Mulberry Street. We used to go eat at Casa La Bella. So these are prolific killers, tough guys, and But listen, when you're in this life, we all know the rules, and if we break those rules, in our neighborhood, guys are used to hearing one or two people dying. In our neighborhood, and I talk about it all the time. I put a list together about 100 guys that got killed. So, it's no small list. If you do something wrong and if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing and you're warned, that's why I wouldn't be sitting here today if I wasn't able to do what I did by the orders of my bosses. This is the next guy, whether it would be Anthony. We'll use him as an example. I've been around the family since I'm a kid. If I do the wrong thing and his father says you got to kill him, I understand the life. It's nothing personal. He loves me. We love each other. We're friends. Our families are friends. But at the end of the day, it's an order. If he doesn't do it, he gets killed. And if he doesn't do it to me, don't worry. There's going to be another guy behind him that's going to kill me. So that's just part of us.
Yeah, that's very clear. Vito Guzzo.
Vito Guzzo was a guy that grew up with me since he's about 6 years old. Tough guy. He's been shot a couple different times. His friends, they tried to kill me several times. They were all on America's Most Wanted, different thing they were involved. His father was a Colombo guy who got hit. Vito killed the guys that hit him. They tried to hit me, and I ordered the murder on Vito Guzzo through our family again. I had nothing really at that time. I was trying to actually get friendly with Vito and take over some things, but at that time, the treachery between both of us and the killing never worked out, and we tried to hit him. He got shot about 5 times, survived it, and he killed one of the hitters. So, again, that's back to the life of, these are serious guys. Vito's a serious guy in the street, and his guys, and I've talked about him before, his crew of guys, Cookie and these guys are legitimately tough fucking guys. Cookie got shot in the head and neck. He survived it. And some of the other guys, unfortunately, didn't survive it. And fortunately, I survived it.
Yeah, for me, even, just to come on the back of that, John, when I think back to the life that I had within that, for me, going to prison, police, organised squads and all that was the least of my problems, really. I was more concerned with who caught who first and how I was moving, who knew what, and all this stuff. It's a terrible way to have to live, John. I have to be, looking back, it's suicidal, right? But look, I want to ask you, how was them times for you in the middle of that stuff?
You every day you put on your pants and this, and you walk out the door. You start your car, or you walk into a place that you're a little drunk and you're not got your full wits. You can lose your life that day. So, and not only lose your life, but you can lose it in a really bad way. It depends on who's going to get you. If they torture you, tear your body apart before they kill you. And in my case, because of all the violence I did, that would definitely be my ending. So, when people say to me about today, you got to eventually say to yourself, I'm retired, I'm done. Because after a while, you're tired of the action, tired of killing. It's nothing to go back and do what we used to do. We all know we can do that anytime we feel like it. It's just, when do you say it's enough? Because you can't kill the whole world that are talking. You can't kill the whole world that is, coming after you, because this ain't going to stop. It's either you got to put an end to it one way or another, which I did, and say, let the guys talk. I'm done. I'm retired. I don't have the crown anymore, whatever word you want to use. But we understand that the life is treachery and death. It's not, I say it every time at the end of my show, crime doesn't pay unless you want to pay with your life.
Yeah, and Sammy Gravano, we're going to go forward a little bit, but I'm interested, just before they hit on Paul Castellano and, all of that stuff that happened there, right, about the drugs. I know you was heavily involved with the heroin business then, John, at that time, just before that and coming up, right? Was you aware of stuff that was going to happen down to this dealing drugs within that life, knowing the way them rules were very strict, especially for the other guys and the maid guys?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up again with, with all these guys, and so I was involved in the heroin trade with them on a small level. I was big in the coke business, and Sammy was an outsider. Actually, people don't understand that he became the underboss, but he wasn't the insider with Fat Andy Ruggiano or John Gotti or anybody else. He was a Brooklyn guy that he's a working partner is the best way I could say it, going to a regular company, but he wasn't family or friend. And there's a big difference on the level of trust of a guy with Gotti and him or Fat Andy and some of these guys. Fat Andy's partner was Tony Lee, who was like his brother, who was very close to the family. And these are the guys that you depend on. You're not going to depend on an outside guy to do any work for you. So if I needed something, I would go obviously to Anthony or Albert like I did because I know I could trust them like family members. I'm not going to go to an outside guy and ask him, can you help me hit a guy? Because you don't have that trust value. And the same thing with Sammy. People don't know. John never wanted me friendly with him. I said hello to him here and there because John wanted me to hit him eventually. And people don't get, why didn't John want me to be friendly with this guy? There's only one reason. I'm friendly with everybody else. I wasn't allowed to talk to him besides hello and goodbye. So these are the things, the treachery in the life that John was smart enough to say, eventually I'm going to kill this guy, whether he didn't like him, whether he was jealous of him, whether he didn't trust him, whether, I don't know what those reasons were in John's head. I'm not allowed to question that. All I'm allowed to do is when he told me don't talk to him, I knew I couldn't talk, to say hello and goodbye, and that's about it. And, and that day might have came for Sammy if they don't get pinched, who knows?
Yeah, this is a real example of, the advanced cleverness. We would know about how to move bodies around and play Peter against Paul, and definitely don't. And, it's all designed, right? It's Machiavellian design, but it's unbelievably clever. We're talking live and dev here, which makes you so good at it. Because you have to be good at it or you die. It's as simple as that. And you learn from people, Lomba, who have just so much to teach you. And you listen well, right? You listen well. So, look, I've got to ask you about John Sr. and Sammy. Now, there's a lot about that, out there, about the end of it. What are your views on it, John?
Well, first off, when they're getting pinched in the 1990, my detective is Phil Baroni, who was also on a murder with me. We killed a guy that everybody's familiar with because they asked me the question about the guy Georgie on a regular basis. Phil was with me when we killed him. Phil's the one that gave me the information from another guy, Coffee, that was going to pinch John at the time. So they got a head start, and they knew from me. I gave them the information they were going to get pinched. So I'm going to work from that point back now. So coming back from that, you had a lot of, you have two different sets of crews. You had Sammy that was well known in Brooklyn. And, he had the connections with guys like Frankie DeChico and guys, in the Brooklyn faction. He had relationships across the board. John had a little different situation. John had some personal serious killers that were very loyal to him since he was kids. That was Johnny Koenig and guys like that. And they grew up, well, Mark Ryder, even though he wasn't a killer like that, but they grew up each other since they're children. And then he had Eddie Leno and Tony Roach and certain guys. So he had his own faction of serious killers. But again, even though we're all together, we're kind of separate. And people really don't understand that. So if John had to go to somebody, he would go to somebody like his brother Jeannie and Johnny Koenig. He wouldn't go to Brooklyn because Brooklyn was working relationship partners. It's a completely unique, different situation. And again, we're trying to talk to people that are listening to us, that are laymen. They really don't understand the intricacies of this life. So Sammy and John always had some sort of animosity towards each other, even though they worked with each other. And that underlining, whatever the problem was between them, I don't really know because I'm not going to sit there and ask John, why are you telling me you don't talk to Sammy? Why don't you trust Sammy fully? And then on Sammy's end, he's going to have his own reasons of why he says what he says. So, the problem I had with John was gangster 100%, but he had some faults. His faults was, the notoriety. He wanted the notoriety. It destroyed all of us. And, he's one of the smartest Machiavelli guys around. And I think, in my opinion, I've said this on several occasions, I don't believe there was any reason to hit Paul Castellano. I think John used it as an excuse to step up and take a position that he wanted to take, and he knew it was his chance. And he knew that he can control guys, and he was very good at controlling guys. Nobody better than John, I could say, that really knew how to master people. And, you know, so that's some of the good things about John. And one of the other things about John is when you socialize with him, he was a gentleman. He went out, he liked to have fun. We drank, and it was broads, and we traveled, and we went to Florida on boats. And I mean, he knew how to have a good time. So he did let his hair down, but very rarely in front of a lot of people.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I spoke to Michael Franzese, right? You know, and he said the same thing about John. You know, he's great to go out with, great guy to have fun with. He was very tough. You know, and you can say what you want about John Gotti, but for me, I've always liked people who was what they said they was, and they went out on their feet, and they went right to the end. And they called it how it was, right? You know, he's certainly done that. We all have flaws, right? You know, and the thing is to manage these. This is one of the big things in life, is to identify them and manage them. You know, so that, you know, that's what I would say. But look, I have to ask you as well, John, about Sammy says, this guy wasn't straight with me and all that. You know what the story is out there. What's your view about that? What's your clear view about that, John?
My view is, like, you know, again, John didn't care about money. That's one thing about John. He spent it, he gambled it. He didn't particularly like guys like Michael Franzese. You know, that's no secret. Michael knows that. He liked guys like Fat Andy Ruggiano. He loved Fat Andy. He was around Fat Andy since he was a kid, before he got in the position. He loved guys to be like me. He wanted us to be rough and tough, and this is what he liked. So with John, he didn't want to hear so much about the business. He didn't care. So that's where I could see him and Sammy bumping heads. He did not care about the money. Give him the money and he'll go spend the money. But if he had 100,000, he gambled 150,000, and he gambled like that. So for the people that don't know, they used to play Continental for 2 days straight. He lose $250,000 back in the 80s like it was nothing. So, you know, when somebody says, well, did John care about money? John, like anything else, he liked some nice things for the moment. He wasn't a guy worried about next year. He wasn't a guy that said, oh, this money's going to rule me. So if you had 200,000 and he wanted to spend it on gambling, he'd take it and spend it. But if he had 100,000 and you didn't have a penny, he'd give you the whole 100,000 also. So, you know, John had a unique personality that way. And that's what made him so likable and lovable that guys really liked him. So people say, why'd you like the guy so much? He just had a unique personality. He had a charisma about him that the rest of his family never had. Nobody. Not his brothers, anybody. He was just a unique guy. So I think, again, that relationship between him and Sammy is an ego thing that was going on, underlining of everything else that was going on. So I think eventually that popped. And I think one of the things is because, again, that Paul hit should have never been done. I don't care what they say. He had 2 cases going at the time, Paul. He wasn't killing nobody. In my opinion, Paul's never killing anybody. Roy DeMeo's already gone. He had, you know, Testa and Senta kill Roy right before that. And, you know, you're in a position where there's 2 major cases going against you. I don't think you're going to make that move. I think John just was smart enough to manipulate that move into what he said, and he took over the hit, and he had the rest of these guys follow him. Guys can say what they want. They all followed him.
Yeah. You know, and you have to admit, you can say what you want, but it's, you know, it shows a lot of cleverness for that life, for the mob life, right?
For that life, yeah, 100%. He was a clever guy.
You know, you want to come up, you know, it's a unbelievably clever move, you know, which takes, you know, a lot of bollocks as well. It's the aftermath where it come undone, and that was the bit that had to be managed. You know, go in there and doing what you have to do. You know, I've heard you say it, John. It's not that hard. Let's be honest. You know, to go and do what you have to do, really, especially when you're leveraged into it, is not that hard. Let's be honest. It's what comes after, right? Is harder, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, they picked us apart after that Paul hit. People that in the public don't realize they killed about 7 of our guys. We don't kill anybody back. I mean, we're getting hit left and right after that. And, you know, who do you fire at first? You just started a war between several strong families, and then you have the adversaries in our own family on the Castellano side that don't like it. So John was in a bad spot at the time. Once he did that, it was the beginning of the end. because you got law enforcement on you. You're catching case after case. He caught about 5, 6 dumb cases. Not dumb, but, some of them were like when he knocks out a Russian guy. Some of these cases, the heat was on him. It was 24-hour surveillance because of the notoriety that he put on himself. And then you have, several RICO cases, the state, the Fed. So it was the beginning to the end. So now how do you start asking guys to hit more guys while our guys are getting hit and then it's all over the news? So you had, like guys like Joey Scopa, who was very loyal to Gotti Sr., and he took over a faction of the Colombo family. He gets one of the last murders in 92, 93, whenever you get a hit. I think it was the end of 92. So once these things start going, there's no way to fight back. And he put himself in a bad spot, Senior. He's getting hit with cases and he's all over the media, and our guys are getting clipped at the same time. So it was a disaster of a decision, I say. I've always said it. Thanks for tuning in, guys, to a wonderful new segment of The Big Shift with Stephen Gillen. Make sure to subscribe, go into stephengillen.com and sign up for more wonderful content to expedite, help, and support you on your own personal journey of success.